Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Josh Mansfield, on this Tuesday, January 7th. Everyone's actually back to work now, right?
Right.
Kids are in school. People are doing their thing. I updated my Mac OS software, so now my camera's glitching. So
there it was.
There it is. Sorry. I'm going to try to get to the bottom of it. Already did a bunch of things, not fixed yet. But I will figure it out. It's time to get back to work, but no disc golf still for 2 months, Josh. It's tough times, but there's still the drip of sponsorship news and plenty to discuss, including a disgruntled former Dynamic Discs employee doing an Ask Me Anything over on Reddit and kind of spilling some tea.
He's got receipts, that's for sure.
He definitely has receipts. So let's dig in. We've got a lot to do. We've got a great interview coming up on Thursday, and much to talk about. So first things first, of course, as soon as we finished our show on Thursday, the announcement came out. Ezra Robinson signing with Discraft, 2-year deal, and Ezra dropping a new Peach Pirate stamp. Do you like the Peach Pirate stamp, Josh?
It's a fun logo. It's different. It's not his initials. Like, I feel like if we were to do a tier list, any player who's like doesn't have their initials automatically gets to be in like B tier and above. So that's credit to him for that. I do. I think it's fun. And here's what I'll say, Charlie. That announcement came out, and they said that Ezra had crystal buzzes on the Discraft Factory store. And I was like, You know what? I like Ezra. I like buzzes. I'm going to go get one. But the Discraft Factory store doesn't let you pick colors. And so I did not get one yet. So I will be waiting to get it from somewhere else because I refuse to get a color I don't like.
So you can't even put it in like the notes and be like,
I didn't see a spot. Like maybe I could when I was checking out, but I wasn't about to play that game. So I will wait. I hope they get released somewhere else.
I'm sure you'll be able to find one.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Overall, though, it's so funny because the Discraft comes out with their announcement video, and it kind of follows the script of what we've seen from Discraft announcement videos. It's like player talking to camera, kind of like weird hip hop beats, like fast motion through the factory.
Yeah.
Guy stamping his own discs. It's like they've got
the script.
They got the script.
Yeah.
But I just was struck because I was like, hey, I'm like seeing the personality of this player, and I'm like seeing effort being put in to marketing. And in one YouTube video, I feel like they did more for Ezra Robinson in terms of marketing than Prodigy did in the entirety of the lifespan with them. Like, to me, this just goes to show like how important it is to have people who are thinking about like promoting the players that you are paying to promote your product, right? Like it's a two-way street, because creating people understanding of like who this player is, and like obviously there's jokes about Peach Pirate. I won't get into the jokes, but like that, like it is distinctive, right?
Right.
We've got the Georgia element, and then we've got Ezra like bad boy, like leaning into the like adventurous thing, like. But I just felt like I'm seeing personality in a way that I never have before.
It kind of feels like Prodigy's the meme with the guys on the guy on the bike where he sticks a stick in his own front wheel and then goes, "Why aren't our players making us any money?" That's kind of what it feels like. But you're right. Like it was so much. It was personality. It's a logo. Like why did he not have that before? Yep. He's going to do well for himself on Discraft.
I think so. And to me, it's a great signing. Like that. Yeah. He's one of the low key best signings of the season. And it's not because he's some superstar that's going to sell you 1 million products now. It's because of his potential. Like if you put odds on an Ezra Robinson tour win this year, right? Major, Elite Series, whatever, like it's probably about 50-50.
It feels that way. Yeah.
Like I don't think I'd bet it at minus money, But if you gave me plus 200, I would buy it immediately. For sure. I mean, I think he was that close this year, and you got to love the upside that Discraft gets here.
Yeah, I think so too. And I imagine that they're getting him on a deal that, like, because if there are not many players on tour who are a multiple tour series winner, and Ezra's on a 2-year deal with Discraft?
Yes.
If you told me by the end of this 2-year deal, like, again, took the odds of him being a multiple time tour winner, getting 2 wins in 2 years, complete, like, I think that's
north of 15%.
Yeah. And getting, I imagine that the deal you're getting him on for what I think by the end of next 2 years could be a multi-time tour winner is probably a pretty good value buy.
I mean, he's sneaky. Like, he's been sneaky good. Can you believe this? The only player to finish higher in the DGPT standings, sponsored by Discraft in 2024, was Paul
AB?
Macbeth.
Oh.
No. He
AB
finished ahead of AB.
No way.
Yes. AB finished 8th. Now, obviously, it's a little misleading, right? Obviously, anybody with a brain is going to take AB's season over Ezra's.
Sure.
But it shows you the level of consistency that Ezra played at.
It's funny because
he had a lot of second place finishes. A lot.
He does. Well, you said, can you believe? And I almost said yes, because we've done this enough, right? Every month we're like, can you believe? And then we give some stat about how well Ezra Robinson's season was. So I was about to be like, yeah, I can believe it, Charlie, of course. And then I still wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, the back half of the top 10 last year is now, heavily Discraft. Macbeth, Robinson, AB, Chris Dickerson. Yeah, I think I love the signing. I love the signing for both parties. I think it just is a great fit. It makes sense. It's a win-win, and I think we're going to see lots of Peach Pirate stamps out in the wild. Other news announced since then. Let's hit the highlights, and then I'll just read off everything else. Couple of DGA signings of note. Andrew Marweed back. His 3-year deal finished up at the end of 2024, so he was a free agent, but he's back with DGA. Cole Redolin also re-signing with DGA, back for a 3rd season. And Ellie Mittling, 2024 PDGA Rookie of the Year, also re-signing with DGA. I feel like that's their highest profile players outside of Katrina Allen, who's got a deal that runs through the end of 2025.
Yeah, sounds right.
So I feel like they re-signed the players they needed to re-sign.
For DGA, like, that's exactly the tour team size you want. You want 2 MPO, 2 FPO, good players, value players, and then obviously Katrina, who could very well, win another major. It's a perfect team for.
I'm not sure DGA. I see Katrina winning another major.
Probably not. But
at her age, after having a baby, it would be a tremendous achievement if she were to do so.
It would be a tremendous achievement. You are right. But my point, I guess, is like, we've seen the Katrina slumps before, and then she comes back and performs well on tour again. Like that could happen again. I think she could get another win again. We're not that far removed from her last world championship and wins.
We certainly are not. So let me hit some of the other ones here. Erica Stinchcombe is continuing a Thought Space Infinite Trash Panda combo deal. Go ahead.
No, nothing. I just it's funny because the first time that was announced, it was like, wow, that's a weird hodgepodge, and now it's like that's just we need like an initials, because that's the deal. It's
yeah. Can we make like package. A little acronym? Let's see.
You got TIP.
TSITP.
You just do TIP. For Thought Space Infinite Panda, the TIP sponsorship.
I accept that for now.
All right. I'm sure we could come up with something better, but
I mean, T-Pits, that's way worse.
That is demonstrably worse, Charlie.
I'll think on it.
How about the Space Panda sponsorship?
No.
Come on.
No. We already have the Peach Pirate. We can't also have the Space Panda.
Space Panda is significantly less vulnerable to the jokes that the Peach Pirate is suffering.
That is true. They should make a Space Panda stamp. That would be smart.
I thought it was a dumb name, Charlie.
It's not that it's a dumb name.
Infinite thought space pandas.
If you do Space Panda, you're isolating infinite out of the equation.
You just got to put like something infinite.
No. Tip is better for now.
All right.
Let's see. So Colton Montgomery is back with Discmania for the 9th year in a row. Colton Montgomery is always like punched above his weight class with sponsorships over there. I'm not really sure how that started, but at this point, let's just acknowledge it. His brother is essentially the tour manager at Discmania, so I'm sure that's helping.
Yeah.
But they're like, Colton Montgomery's signature series. I'm like, what?
That man, he might have one of the longest running like signature line of discs of just about any player.
It's worked out great.
Yeah.
Mint Discs announces that Mason Ford is back for 2025, throwing a mixed bag. I'm gonna be curious to watch Mint Discs. I was reading a blog post over on their website, and the founder, I think, or at least the operator of the company, was kind of like going to write a blog post every day of the year in 2025, which is that's a commitment. But it's talking about like having some hard times at the back end of last year. Remember, they basically ran U.S. Women's in Austin.
Right.
And they're doing some cool stuff, right? They've got that course in Austin.
Yep.
That, I think is going to become a major course in the U.S. And I just think that like with Lone Star feeling like they're taking a pretty big step back, Mint's in an opportunity window here to like become one of the more important regional brands in Texas, which is the biggest state for disc golf in the U.S. Mm-hmm. I like the Mason Ford fit for them, and yes. I think we could, I'm not expecting them to blow up huge, but I'm curious about their success moving forward.
Here's the other thing I'll say. Talk about, when Mint Discs came out, I think it was like a year later Lone Star came out. And I was like, man, that's such a bummer for Mint to have, two companies trying to vie for this kind of Texas representation. But Mint is the exact opposite of Lone Star. Like they really are what it feels like dedicated to the sport, to the community, to events, to course management, to they really are, their team is likable figures, right? Mason Ford is a very likable person as opposed to, like a Nico signing as your flagship player. So I think Mint is doing everything right. Here's my call. If you throw Mint Disc, and I'll be a couple of years ago, I was in Texas and I disc golfed at a couple courses with some locals down there and who invited me to come play with them. And they all told me about Mint Discs and we're talking and hyping up Mint Discs. So it's definitely a big deal. I have thrown a few Mint Discs and I've tried to like them, but I haven't liked any of the molds or even the plastic that I threw. So somebody who's a Mint Discs enthusiast, send us an email. Tell me one disc. Like, what's the one disc that is going to sell me on Mint? Because I like the company and I want to support them. I don't know what it needs to be. So
people will email us.
People will email us. I'm serious. I want to support this company.
Facts.
Yeah. Tell me what I need to try, because I think I threw like the alpha and I didn't love it. I didn't have a spot for it in my bag. So send me what I need to try. I will give it a shot. But it's I like the company. I like the fit. I'm sure they're getting it at a pretty reasonable price, and in an economy where someone like Mason Ford may not command a deal at all. Good fit for him as well.
Mason Ford's sneaky good though. I mean,
he is.
He's not winning tournaments, but like he did okay for himself last year.
Oh, I know, but
20 finishes.
Sneaky good players are still getting cut from their contracts this year.
You're right.
Right? Like
the having to include a sneaky in front of your name. I mean, he's 1032 rated, right? I think if you're north of 1030, you're still pretty sponsorable in this market, right?
Agreed. But I bet he is getting a better deal at Mint than in this economy what other people are going to want to offer him. So
sure.
It's a good fit. It really
I like
feels like
his
a win-win
chances to win a tournament at some point. He was 4th at Waco last year. Remember that?
I did not remember that.
I'm telling you now.
Good for him. That's awesome. I hope he does win one. I did not remember that off the top of my head, though. I'll be honest.
Waco was crazy.
The problem is that Mason Ford is overshadowed by like the Waco whisperer Luke Humphreys, who just shows up and always comes and gets second. And then we don't. We're like, oh yeah, who'd Luke Humphreys lose to this year? And then that's literally the only question we remember about Waco.
Let's see. Andrew Miranda back with DGA. Not a major signing there. Parker Welk signs with Dynamic Discs. The 2023 DDO champ. We knew he was leaving with Prodigy, right? And so now he's with DDO, or with DD. Again, I like the signing. I think it's a low risk, modest reward deal for a company that is in a like retooling on the sponsorship side.
I'm not gonna lie. I saw this announcement and I was like, I kind of thought Parker was with DD, and then it's because he won DDO.
Yes.
So yeah, like take the free advertising. It works. Like I think it's a good fit too.
Oh, this is a live DGA announcement because I just saw it in our Discord.
Okay.
Available to Ultiworld Disc Golf subscribers. Go to discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe to sign up. Sullivan Tipton back for another year.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So the other one I wanted to talk about just very briefly, a name to watch. Roland, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this properly. I don't think I've ever had to say his name on a broadcast, but I think it's Roland Coeur. Re-signs with Pro Discus on a 2-year deal. And you might be thinking, who the hell is that? And I wouldn't blame you. 17 years old, out of Estonia. And
I hear they make good disc golf.
Got some real promise, Josh. He last year, I'm pulling up the PDGA info here, 4th at the Copenhagen Open on the DGPT, 7th at the Swedish Open on the DGPT, 5th at the European Disc Golf Festival. 17 years old. So I'm not sure if he's the highest rated player in like a male player in Estonia. Probably not quite yet, but he might be soon. I can't look at his rating because his membership has expired. So he was 1022 rated at the end of 2024. But Pro Discus, not a company talked about much in the States, very European focused. I think Kevin Jones once sponsored by them, right?
I think so too.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
But a name to watch, I think a very promising young player who's gone from 979 rated. No, check that. 972 rated at the beginning of 2022 to 1022 rated at the end of 2024. So
that's a jump. That's a jump.
Look out. All right, so that's the catch up on where we are right now with sponsorship news. Nothing yet from Isaac Robinson, and a lot of rumors swirling about a major unexpected shift. We will talk about that after the break. We'll be right back on the Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. You can still get $50 off Deluxe Octothorpes while supplies last. A couple of colorways already sold out, but the Cryptic Typhon and Red, as well as the very nice Clay and Marine, still available, and you're still saving $50 off. So grab one today before they sell out at pounddiscgolf.com. Or if you're like me, grab a Rufus. It's even a little bit cheaper, but not quite so big of a bag. It's just the perfect size if you like a smaller bag. PoundDiscGolf.com has all the options. Check them out today. Welcome back to the Upshot. Just wanted to note that immediately following this recording, we're going to be talking to Will Schusterick, CEO of Prodigy, in our subscriber-only bonus segment, Inside the Circle. He's going to be live in our Discord as we do kind of a second interview, and I feel like the timing ended up working out really well, Josh, because Prodigy has seen kind of this exodus of players. They're down to just a couple of sponsored pros, and I'm really curious to talk to Will about where things are with the way that they're thinking about kind of like marketing, especially in this environment of the current state of the sport. And so if you're interested in hearing more, please sign up for an Ultra Disc Golf subscription, join the Discord, check out all our Inside the Circle bonus segments. Should be a good one, Josh. So next up, Dynamic Discs disgruntled employee Ask Me Anything over on Reddit's Disc Golf subreddit. There's lots to go see if you want to just go check it all out yourself. But Josh, you pulled the stuff that you found was the most interesting. So let's dive in. So the AMA comes from former director of operations over at DD, Chris Edson, who left the company last year after getting laid off, along with his wife, who also got laid off. So, is there an axe to grind here? Probably. Seems like it. And Chris had some thoughts to share. So, Josh, what did you think was the most interesting? And let's discuss.
Yeah, I think the one right at the top that stood out to me was the question, did the change from Dynamic to House of Discs hurt the culture and or internal experience for employees? In addition, do you think this helped or hurt the Dynamic brand? He says, and I'm just going to read verbatim on this one. It's the longest of the bunch, but he says, not right away, but in the long run, yes. The change was initially a welcome one for most part. I think most were excited for new leadership and a new direction, so to speak. Once, and this is quoting, corporate greed took over and profit and revenue goals were not being met, changes happened swiftly, anywhere from spending and hiring freezes to limiting compensation increases and ultimately to cutting staff down and to passing additional work to others with no incentive to work harder. I think this hurt the brand in general. At one point in time, every employee was passionate about the brand and couldn't wait to tell someone they worked there. That gradually shifted to simply collecting a paycheck while monitoring LinkedIn and Indeed for other opportunities.
Welcome to a recession.
Yep.
I mean, I think that some of the missteps from management on the House of Discs side, where they hired, random outsiders to come in who massively mispriced discs and misunderstood where the market was and how things were cooling, probably exacerbated some of these problems. But I'll tell you what, if everything had stayed exactly the same, Didi didn't sell, Jeremy Rusko's still in charge, everything stays the same, they go through basically the same process and problems because it is a global demand problem. It is not a specific House of Discs mismanagement problem. I think that they haven't helped themselves with that stuff, but there probably would have been layoffs, hiring freezes, salary cuts, etc. under the old regime, the same as the new regime, because discs simply aren't selling as much, and this is happening across the industry.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's the hard part is, and I make sure to emphasize here that I'm quoting the once corporate greed took over, and it's like, are you telling me that DD was just going to run at a loss for 4 or 5 years to get through this recession? I don't think that's true. I agree. There definitely was some mismanagement that set them up to fall harder and faster than some of the other companies have. But it is something that it also, I read it and I'm like, welcome to corporate America. This doesn't even feel unique to the disc golf industry in cases of recessions and slowdowns. Things like compensation increase limits and hiring freezes and reduction of staff of workforces. That is a common practice in recession time. And I'm not saying it doesn't suck, but I just don't see DD as being particularly pernicious, or House of Discs as being particularly pernicious in its handling of this process, quite as much as I think this AMA tries to imply.
We can't know, of course.
No, we cannot.
And I think that it's very possible that it wouldn't have felt as impersonal had it been the original ownership versus these sort of like newly installed people coming in and making these decisions.
Here's the other thing.
It's also like, you have been working for this company for a long time. It's really hard to watch it suddenly struggling and feel like, you would have done it better, or that you would have been able to solve these problems, and like it's their fault, right? You blame them. And, it remains to be seen whether the House of Discs idea, private equity coming in, trying to, consolidate, make things more streamlined, economical in order to make more money and potentially sell their stake in the future. I mean, that's what this industry is about. Whether that's going to work out or not. Obviously, they bought at a horrible time. On the other hand, like, the growth that came during the pandemic is probably part of the reason private equity was interested in the first place. So I think these problems are happening across the industry. It's not House of Discs specific, but because they bought at high valuations and they have a lot of brands and a lot of personnel, naturally there was going to be layoffs anyway because they were going to be streamlining. And that just happened worse and faster and probably uglier because of the nature of the current market.
Here's the other thing, is that the 11 years, right, as you highlighted,
it's brutal.
It's brutal. And probably with original ownership who he worked for those 11 years, there probably is additional value that doesn't carry over in the same way when you're just looking at the actual, how much do we pay this employee for what they do? My company, so what I work for in my day job, they went public and went to a publicly traded company about a year and a half ago. And when they did it, the stock price opened at probably like half too high, 50% too high. And it immediately dropped and corrected to where, honestly, I think it should be. But because of that, all the investors who purchased it at that higher level are now trying to make their money back. And there was a complete restructuring of middle management. Like, classic. that is classic. It is the target. And middle management is where companies tend to balloon costs, bloat and bloat, and not get the same kind of ROI on those management. Now, I'm not saying this director of operations wasn't worth the money, but that is an analysis that I think you see oftentimes in cases like this, where they feel like they need to cut some of the and trim the edges. And that 11 years probably didn't carry the weight with House of Discs that it carried with management that he'd worked for. And so it probably did feel very impersonal and very much like a slap in the face.
Of course. And I don't want to be an apologist for the House of Discs management here, because it feels like they've completely gutted Discmania's U.S. operations, Dynamic Discs U.S. operations. It's like, and then Chris in this AMA is talking about how they've rehired some of the positions that they fired. Perhaps that's because they wanted to hire people for cheaper. Perhaps that's because they fired too fast, and then they were like, wait, we have nobody to do the work. It's clearly a mess. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a mess. But I think that this kind of mess was probably inevitable, especially at DD, where I feel like things have just not been run in a smart way, right? The helicopter video with Kona and Ricky, and really the Kona deal period, and even the Ricky deal at the magnitude that it came in at, like, those were all signs of the top. And maybe that wasn't exactly the top, but it was pretty close. And, you have these expensive deals. You try to make this splash. You move into a big-ass new warehouse. All these things kind of piling up. And then when sales numbers aren't there, you're going to struggle. And I think that Dynamic Disc was set up for a struggling situation, regardless of the House of Disc stuff. So, that doesn't make it any easier to lose your job. And it's got to be very frustrating to feel like, you helped grow this company, and then not only is it struggling, but you just get cast aside.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned, someone asked, did Ricky and Kona deals create positive ROI? And Chris's answer, no and no. Not while I was there, at least. Which that's the bad sign, is because it doesn't. Deals don't get better in the long run in terms of making and returning ROI. The point is that you make a ton of money in the first couple of years in order to help pay off the back end, where that eventually slows down in most cases. So, that does not surprise me.
You know what part of the problem is? DD's just not cool.
He is not.
They don't make cool stamps. They don't make cool discs. It's not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Ricky's lineup is just not. It's not cool. I'm sorry. Like there's more to be done, and they haven't done it. And like Latitude stuff, same plastic, basically the same disc. It's just cooler. They got cooler stamps, right?
Yeah. I've always the criminal justice naming convention has always been weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Great putter though.
I know you're a fan.
Pink judges, baby. How about this one? When did you realize the COVID bubble had burst? Chris said, it's hard to put an accurate timetable on this. I was heavily involved in Amazon during the COVID spike and eventual fall, but it seemed like Amazon numbers started rapidly declining early in 2022 and never really fully recovered to what they once were. So that's just one sales channel, obviously, but makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Think about who's buying discs on Amazon. It's not hardcore disc golfers.
No.
It's people who are like, oh, I'm going to try this out. And like 2022 start is like people are going to do they're like back to their regular life at that point.
Yep. Yeah. This may be the best proxy for like
I agree.
The new player influence of new players in the sport.
Yeah.
It really might be is Amazon numbers. So I'd be curious. I wish I could see a chart of just Amazon sales of discs. Because I bet that would be a pretty illustrative story about what disc golf has gone through.
I agree. What else we got, Josh?
Yeah, so those are the biggest ones about DD that I think.
Yeah, there's tons of additional details in the full thread if you want to go check it out.
Yes.
And just like talking about stuff like, paying bills on time and things like that, and it's just money's been super tight.
Right. Yeah. The one that's interesting here, though, that I think is going to have us, we're going to change topics a little bit here. Someone asked, while you were there, did you ever hear rumors of needing to cut big name signings like Ricky as part of these reductions? And his response was, absolutely. So, Charlie, this has been circling the internet.
The rumors are swirling.
Yes.
About Ricky leaving DD, and they've been around for a while. DD trying to renegotiate the contract / maybe end the contract. Mm-hmm. And there were some questions in this thread about another rumor that's been going around, which is that Ricky might land at Discraft. And, Chris didn't confirm any of this. But, a couple of data points. Ricky had a Dynamic Discs Phoenix shop, and it got renamed to Disc Golf HQ, and like all of the logos and Instagram name and stuff was updated today. So that's certainly interesting. And it would obviously make sense, right? This is the final year of Ricky's contract. Maybe there's an out clause.
Yep.
Maybe there's a buyout clause. And if you're trying to shed salary and you're having money problems, giving Ricky Wysocki $1 million is probably not what you want to do in 2025.
That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money back.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
So hard to know exactly what the situation is there, but the rumors are becoming pretty intense.
Yeah.
And
in disc golf, as in many things, where there's smoke, there's fire.
A lot of the time.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. But, Ricky left Innova mid-contract.
Yep.
In one of the first high-profile, like, cancellations of a contract midway. Mm-hmm. And then, when he signed with DD, because Ricky basically signed a year too early with Innova and then realized he could get $1 million a year. bounced, and then there was, legal stuff going on in the background. It never became public, or maybe even never got filed publicly in court with Innova. So maybe some settlement happened there. And then now Ricky's on the other side of it, perhaps.
Yeah.
Where the sponsors will want to pay.
It is interesting. I'd be shocked. Like, if you got that deal and the clause was like, oh yeah, DD has option to just not do fourth year, like, I'd have, yeah.
It may not be that. It might be
sure.
Either party can end the agreement with a buyout clause of X.
Sure.
Or
their terms.
If we haven't met a certain sales number, we can get out. Or it could be, it's hard to imagine it's performance based given how well Ricky played this past season.
Correct.
So, but it wouldn't be shocking at all that there were, terms in there for DD to be able to step aside, and maybe they just agreed to part ways with some sort of buyout clause, even though that wasn't necessarily stipulated in the contract.
Sure. I'm curious to know what Ricky's sales were like.
Because, like direct disc sales.
Like, what can you attribute to Ricky?
That's so hard to say. I mean, remember when DD signed Ricky, they had no high-profile players, period.
Right.
And so they made this big splashy signing in that offseason where it felt like, they got to make a move, and they made a move. And it's hard to argue that Ricky hasn't been like a good ambassador for the brand in terms of his performance, and like he's hustling this, he's selling this like crazy. It's just not clear necessarily that they capitalized to the greatest extent on him. And he's also just not Macbeth.
No.
Wouldn't it be if he ends up at Discraft? Isn't that a little weird?
It's so weird.
I have weird. Not. That has been the constant rumor. Yes. That it's going to be Discraft.
It's so. Climo, Ricky, and Macbeth collab discs.
Discraft going crazy.
I really am curious to know.
They can't make a Macbeth Ricky disc, right? Like, that's just weird.
What if they did like a
Macbeth like goes into the headquarters and it's like, don't even.
they do a Ricky Lil Bro disc.
It's like Macbeth sunning him on a stamp. Ricky, by the way, clearly the better player in 2024.
Without a doubt. Honestly, he's been the better player for consistently for a few years now.
Yeah.
Macbeth just managed to keep pulling majors out. It's going to be so weird. It also means that Ricky has been a lot of these top players, they get to one company, they do really well with that one company, and then sometimes they'll switch and go to their second company. You've got, Calvin's been at Innova the entire time. Macbeth did Innova, then Discraft. You have Simon, who was Discmania forever, and then moves over to MVP. And two spots. Sexton, long staple at Innova. Gannon's done Prodigy, now Discmania. And maybe this is going to be the future, is a little bit more changes. But this means Ricky has now done DD to Innova, back to DD, now Discraft.
No, he was Latitude, right?
You're right, it was Latitude. It was Latitude.
Trilogy.
So Latitude, that makes it even worse. Latitude to Innova to DD to Discraft now. Listen.
Maybe. We don't know about. We'll see if that's what ends up, if the rumors end up being true.
That's a lot of jumping. It's a lot of jumping around.
He's an interesting character, right? He's like like an old school guy in some ways, right? He's like hustling discs at tournaments. Yeah. He's hustling discs on the internet. He's selling mystery boxes, and he's on his Instagram live. He got stacks of discs. He's like, I'm selling this stuff. He's hustling, and it's kind of cool because it's he's kind of one of those guys who made it, and yet he's still just grinding.
Yeah.
he's got that old school
Plays a ton of
mentality
events.
about the whole thing. And I think we're going to see more pros are going to need to act like that in 2025 if they want to make ends meet out on the road.
If Ricky goes to his 4th manufacturer, can you name any player that's hit 4 manufacturers?
Probably a bunch. I mean,
that has a win on
all
tour.
the people who were at Prodigy in the past have probably cycled through. Like a lot of the older players have probably cycled through 3 or 4 sponsors.
Yeah, I get like,
because there were people who were with an Innova or a Discraft, and then Prodigy came out in early 2010s, and everybody went to Prodigy.
Yeah,
and then they all left Prodigy and went somewhere else, and they probably burned their bridge with their original manufacturing sponsor. So then they went somewhere else. So I mean, it's not none of the young stars right now, but the contract, the market is so different. I mean, people used to be on 1-year deals every year, and they were looking to get the best deal they could every year. And now you have people on 3, 4, 5-year, 10-year deals.
Yeah.
Speaking of just like general struggles of disc golf industry, sorry, this is like an endless topic right now, but Jeremy Rusko, who bought the Emporia Country Club to make it into Champions Landing, right? So then they hosted the tournament there last year. Big blog post from Jeremy about Champions Landing. Almost pulled the plug on the whole thing at the end of this year. Like, that's how bad it was. They lost so much money that they almost called it quits. But it sounds like Jeremy's going to try and shout out to Smashbox who talked about this first. The post is on the champslanding.com website if you want to check it out. The headline of the post, Embracing the Messy to Reach the Great, a reflection on Champions Landing's first 10 months. So they're going to close the disc golf course or the golf course because they were not really making enough money to cover the payroll at all to upkeep the golf course. So they're going to exclusively focus on disc golf. They're going to be cutting staffing. They're going to be discontinuing season passes effective immediately. They're closing the swimming pool that was on site. There's now going to be fees for, renting the rooms or other things at the facilities. I'm surprised they weren't already charging money for that. Yeah. They're going to focus more on events like doing weddings, private parties, live music. They have a coffee shop on site that isn't doing great, and they might close it if it doesn't do better. So quoting from the article, here's the deal. We have excelled in so many ways, yet we have failed at almost everything that we have done. Turning this past country club into the place to be in Emporia, where everyone is welcome, has felt like mission impossible. I felt like we had to experiment with everything from the start in order to get people in the door for the first time and hopefully a second time. We have failed time and time again with all of the things that we've been trying to accomplish. We have tried to be everything to everyone in an attempt to break down the thought of being a members-only country club. Trying to do everything has left us failing one time after another. So obviously things not great at Champs Landing, and it just feels like a larger disc golf industry struggle spot. But DDO is not going to be on tour this year. It's I hope they can make it work, right? I hope they can find the money to do like a full course redesign and like really turn it into like a spot. But man, Emporia is not what it once was, Josh.
No, it isn't. And it's not what it once was to disc golf. And the problem is, and I think people forget this sometimes, I just looked it up. Emporia's population is 25,000 people. To try and support an operation that is a coffee shop, pool, golf course, venue, disc golf course in a town that size, it is too much.
There's a reason the original owners were trying to sell it, right?
Yes. And the issue is like, if this was a decade ago, and Emporia was still the destination for disc golfers. I mean, because that's what it used to be with Glass Blown Open. That was a destination trip that players and fans would come to come be a part of, and it's just not that way anymore.
It's true. And I don't know if it can be turned around. I mean,
I don't either.
Like, this post was basically like they had a Christmas party and Jeremy told everybody they were closing the doors after the New Year's Eve party. And then they're like, he like went back to the drawing board and is just going to try to make it work, but it's not like this is going to necessarily work out.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Jeremy got a lot of money from DD, and it would not be the first time we've seen somebody who just purchases a piece of property and puts in a disc golf course that does its best to just break even on a disc golf course. I don't know how much they paid for that property though, and that's the big issue. And if they can, I really hope that they're able to just get it to work as a disc golf course and then have a small event center on the side, because it's, I think it's a course that people want and it's a property that people want there. But I hope he makes it work. I hope they can do it this year. Yep. But just another casualty of the COVID slowdowns.
It's just the fallout it's happening right now.
It is.
So how about this? We'll end on this. Drew Gibson is now essentially a content creator.
Yep.
He made a video about the House of Disc stuff and talking about the struggles that they're having and discussing bankruptcy rumors.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff doesn't make any sense. People are like, I heard they're going to dump all of the debt from the company onto Dynamic Disc and then bankrupt Dynamic Discs to like wipe out the debt. And it's like, that is not how that works. And a bankruptcy court is not going to allow that to happen.
People go to jail for stuff like that.
Yeah, you can't do that. Like, that is not how this works. Like, but yeah, I mean, I will note House of Disc financial statements, which are public because it's a Nordic European country. They have to file public forms. I mean, they have many millions of dollars in debt right now.
Right.
Which, presumably was taken on to purchase all of these companies.
Correct.
But, their interest expense in 2023 was like $7 million. So it's like expensive stuff, but you can't just wipe it out by closing a subsidiary. That's not how that works. And I don't think that there's really any evidence that they're going to bankrupt DD. They just signed Parker Welk. So that's doesn't seem like a realistic rumor. But Drew Gibson is talking about this, and you can go watch a video, but Josh, Drew had some thoughts about the fact that Discmania sold the disc golf disc for Silas Schultz for making the song of the summer. Mm-hmm. Take a quick listen to this snippet from this Drew Gibson video.
I knew that House of Discs as a whole was struggling really bad when they gave a kid who hasn't won an A tier in 2 years a signature disc for the song of the summer. I personally have no problem with the thing. I mean, if that's how you want to react, then cool. But when that turned into a signature disc and promotions and Instagram stuff, I knew oh wow, they're grinding for some cash flow.
All right, Josh. So there you go. Drew knew they were down bad when they made this disc golf disc track disc, which by the way sold out. Yeah. I'm sorry, but Drew, stop. Please. You're already dead. Don't make it worse. Why are you still talking about it?
Why are you taking shots at Silas again? This didn't go well the first time. Leave the man alone.
He's gonna make his winter diss track.
First off, the cope is so real here. You can see it. That's why they made the disc, was because they're just really struggling, and so they really just needed something. So that's how Drew makes himself feel better. The fact that him getting just absolutely wrecked in an Instagram battle turned into a bunch of money for the company and for the person who did it. That's ridiculous. The other thing I find absolutely insane is that Drew thinks that because they did a Silas disc in lieu of a different tour player's disc. Therefore, they must be having cash flow problems. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
No,
Because all they did was take stock discs and make a new stamp and foil stamp it.
Yeah, yes. Because they're like, oh, wow, the internet's really popping with this Silas thing right now. We could make a bunch of money from this. That'd be
This is
really
good marketing.
easy. Yes, this is how to market. and the fact that he throws in, like, dude. Oh, and you know, the fact that they made this disc for a guy who hadn't even won on tour. It's like, what are you doing?
Oh my
what
God.
What are you doing?
No way. It is too funny. It's too funny. It almost feels like it can't be real. It's like you're writing a script for Curb Your Enthusiasm or something. Like,
right.
It's brilliant stuff. I am gonna try to get a disc golf disc for the wall.
I love that. I'm gonna laugh every time I look behind you and see that disc hanging there as a reminder of one of my favorite things from 2024.
Oh my gosh, man, it's great stuff. All right, that is going to do it for today's show. We're going to head over and talk to Will Schustrick right now inside the Circle Live in our Discord. discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. It's less than $4 a month to join the Discord, and you can check out all our Inside the Circles, our live rapid reacts after every tournament, all the good stuff. So join us there. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. We'll talk to you Thursday, hopefully with a better camera for me right here on the Upshot.